All right, guys, I want to talk briefly about the nature of politics in this course we call social and political theory. Um, Traditionally, anytime we talk about politics, we conceive it to be a certain activity that happens in the public domain and also within the state. So, for a long time, scholars had argued that politics had to do with the study of the state and its institutions. Politics had to do with the study of the state and its institutions. And the examples of the state institutions include the legislative arm of government, the executive, the judiciary, political parties, bureaucracy, etc. So, anytime people spoke about politics, the idea was that it connoted or it had a connotation about the study of the state, or it meant the study of the state and its institutions. Now, the etymology of politics as a state-centered activity dominated in the minds of many scholars for so many years till maybe we got to the behavioral revolutionary times around the 1960s. So what I'm saying is that scholars like Plato, Aristotle, Hobbes, Cicero, Machiavelli, among others, dwelled on the state in their intellectual pursuit and in their study of politics. So anytime Machiavelli, anytime Plato, Hobbes, Aristotle, etc., Cicero spoke about politics, essentially we're talking about the study of the state and its institutions. And so this was something that had happened for many years. Indeed, the statist scholars saw political science and its study as the need and its study as being the bit about we concentrating on the state and the aims and objectives and purposes of the state and the institutions of the state, why we should obey the state, the conditions under which we can disobey the state, the relationship that must exist between the state and its institutions, etc., etc. These were the focus of those scholars who felt that the study of the state should be the dominating factor when it comes to the study of politics. So maybe it was in lubricating this view that Professor Okudiba Inoli defined politics or the political as a study of the state and its institutions, or the study of the state and the conditions essential to its existence and its development. Okudiba Inoli defined politics in trying to lubricate the view of the statist scholars of politics, said that politics is the study of the state and the conditions essential to its existence and development. Now, for so many years, this idea, as I indicated, had dominated. But up till the 1990s, or from the latter part, middle of the 1980s to 1990s, there came an idea that the frontiers of politics and the political ought to be broadened. The frontiers of politics or the political ought to be broadened. And so we had scholars like Leftwich, and we had scholars like C.J. Anderson. Now, if you look at what Leftwich said in his in a request to broaden the frontiers of the political, he said that politics should be defined not in terms of an arena or set of institutions where certain activities occur. Instead, politics should be defined in terms of a generalized process within human society. Now, she goes on to postulate that politics should not be viewed as a separate realm or sphere of public activity or public life. Instead, in her view, politics comprises all activities of conflict and cooperation that occurs within the state and makes it possible for human beings to go about their normal activities. Politics comprises all activities of conflict and cooperation that occurs within not the state but within the society. All activities of conflicts and cooperation that occurs within the society and makes it possible for human beings to go about their normal life, their normal social and biological life. So if you look at what Leftwich has said, she sought to broaden the scope or the frontiers of the political. I said all activities of conflict and cooperation that occurs within a society and makes it possible for human beings to go about their normal social and biological life. So you want to believe and you want to appreciate the fact that the activities of conflict and cooperation occurs everywhere, not only within the state, but it occurs everywhere in our normal human interactions and human relations with ourselves. Now, C.J. Anderson goes on to also look at the otherness of politics and also tries to argue that when you talk about politics, you are talking essentially about a collective activity. In his view, human beings in essence act politically when they take decisions on behalf of other groups and not for oneself. And he goes on to argue that oftentimes we act politically by acting on behalf or taking decisions on behalf of other people. Now, taking decisions on behalf of other people is done everywhere, not only within the state. And so, get this, in trying to expand the frontiers of the political, Adrian Leftwich said, politics should not be seen as a certain arena or domain where a certain activity they call politics takes place. But politics takes place in all aspects of our social relations. And that's why she argues that it encapsulates all activities of conflict and cooperations that occur within every aspect of our behavior and makes it possible for us to go about our social and biological life. And she's arguing that to the extent that conflict and cooperation occurs not only within the state but everywhere, and politics, the frontiers of politics is expanded beyond the frontiers of the state. C.J. Anderson goes on to say that politics essentially is about taking decisions on behalf of other people. And if in the family we take decisions on behalf of other people, if in the church we take decisions on behalf of other people, then politics is, the frontiers of politics is also broadened to include other areas that are beyond the state. Now, this is what we call the ubiquity of politics. So if you look at the arguments and postulations of Leftwich and C.J. Anderson, they are simply saying that politics cannot be seen to be taking place only within the state, but it takes place everywhere. Now, the fact that politics takes place everywhere is what we say, or what we describe as the ubiquity of politics. You say politics is ubiquitous. It means it does not only take place within the state, but it takes place everywhere. Within the family, within the church, wherever you find yourself, within the school, in a classroom, in a lecture room, wherever you find yourself, politics takes place there. Because in these other arenas, you have activities involving conflict and cooperation. In these other arenas, you have people acting or taking decisions on behalf of other people. That is the ubiquity of politics. The fact that politics is found everywhere. Now, the idea for the broadening of the scope and frontiers of politics was to prevent political science as a discipline from stagnating and becoming irrelevant. You see, if they argued that if you confine the political to the study of only the state, then political science becomes relevant when the state collapses and when its institutions are wiped away. Political science will become irrelevant with the demise of the state. We have several instances where we've witnessed the collapsed states, the state collapsing and its institutions withering away. Now, if you confine the study of politics, the study of the state and its institutions, what happens if the state is no more? So they sought to broaden the frontiers of the political so that tomorrow, if the state is not in existence, politics will still be seen as existent, because we understand that it is ubiquitous, it takes place everywhere. Now, the fact that politics takes place everywhere does not mean that students of politics must be interested in the study of politics everywhere. It takes place everywhere. It takes place in the family. It takes place in the bedroom. But it doesn't mean that you should be interested in the study of politics everywhere, because the study of politics or the manifestation of politics in other areas are more interesting and challenging and require study than in other areas. So you don't have to, because we have said politics is ubiquitous, it takes place everywhere, then you write your proposal that I want to go and study or undertake a research on how politics takes place in the bedroom, or how politics takes place between a man and a woman. And I mean, this is not challenging. This will not be relevant, for the award of any serious degree and all that. So that is that. Traditionally, politics was seen as a statist activity, the study of the state and its institutions. But with time, from the mid-1980s up to the 1990s up to now, we have broadened the scope and frontiers of the political, and we say that now politics is ubiquitous. It no longer is an activity confined to the study of the state, but an activity that borders or occurs in all aspects of our social and biological relations. I'll move on to the next topic. Thank you.